Welcome to qnawire.
Okay, question 5. First of all, we have to draw the supply and demand curve on this graph. So we first draw the demand curve. We know that for one bottle of this drink, people are willing to pay $5. And for the second bottle, people are willing to pay $4. So it's like 4, and then the third bottle, and then 4, and then 5. For 6 bottles and above, people are willing to pay 0. So we know that we have to connect this dot and 1, 5, this dot. Okay, so to draw the demand curve, we now have this downward sloping demand curve. So we can start from answering question A. Question A is saying that the cost of producing this drink is 1.5, and so the supply curve is horizontal. Okay, the line we just drew is demand curve. So now we draw this 1.5, like around here. When the price is 1.5, the firm is going to supply infinite number of this drink. So the supply curve is horizontal. So to answer question A, how many bottles will each village residents consume? So we can see that, okay, this graph is a little bit, so this point, this intersection is actually 4.5. Now we can just observe from the table because when the price is 1.5, the quantity is 4.5. So the equilibrium quantity is 4.5 while the equilibrium price is 1.5. Okay, so what is the person's consumer surplus? We know that when we think of consumer surplus, it is the whole triangle right here between the supply and demand curve. But for the person that paid this amount of money, which is $1.5, and to buy 4.5 bottles of wine, of this drink, at this point, this person's consumer surplus is 0. But as the social consumer surplus, we should like calculate this triangle. Okay, question B. Producing this drink creates pollution, so each bottle has an external cost of 1, which means that actually the social supply curve is shifting upward. This S prime is the social supply curve. So the optimal price of this drink should be 2.5, because with the black curve, we are ignoring the external cost when producing this kind of drink. So the real supply curve should be the blue one. So if we take this additional cost into account, so if we look at this blue line, what is the total surplus per person in the allocation? So we just say that the consumer surplus is the big area right here. But now with the real supply curve, which is the blue line, the consumer surplus is actually smaller. So the difference is this triangle here. I will just like use green color. So the welfare loss is actually this small green triangle here. Okay, question C. If there is a girl named Cindy, she decides on her own to reduce her own consumption. So what does it mean? It means that the demand curve is going to shift left a little bit. Ooh, it's green. Yeah, why is that? It's because Cindy herself uh, drinks less of the wine, of this drink. So the demand curve will shift left, but the original supply curve, which is the 1.5 horizontal line here, does not change. So like the equilibrium quantity is going to decrease a little, like less will be less than 4.5, but the price does not change. So how does Cindy's decision affect the total surplus? So we can see that Cindy's decision is going to make the total surplus smaller because we used to have a bigger triangle here, right? But now with this demand curve being green, the total surplus is going to decrease. Okay, so question D. Now the mayor of this village imposed a $1 tax on this drink. Okay, let me just delete the Cindy demand curve first. Okay, so when the government decides to impose this $1 tax, what is consumption per person now? So when the government imposed the tax, the demand curve is going to shift downward. So we are assuming that they impose this tax on the consumer. So consumer is not going to buy that much of the drink. So they are going to decrease their demand because now it is more expensive to get the drink, right? So since the tax is $1, so this old demand curve shifts downward to the new demand curve by $1. So the difference here is $1 unit. Okay, and calculate the consumer surplus, the cost, and the government revenue. So if we look at the new demand curve, let's call it D prime, with the, should it be like the original? Yeah, with the original supply curve, the consumer surplus is now this triangle. And the tax revenue is going to be the difference between the old demand curve and the new demand curve. So government revenue is the color in green here. So the original supply curve is right here, and the original demand curve is right here, all in black. But now, actually, this portion of revenue is going to the government. So the area in red is the consumer surplus. So we can say that based on this analysis, we would support the mayor's policy because with this tax, we can end up having the efficient amount of quantity, which is this point.